Well, I remember the world before that happened, and then how I looked at the world after that happened.
Imagine being just 12 years old and finding out that someone you love has been murdered by a gun. Not in a movie, not on TV, in real life, in your own neighborhood. The sound of sirens, the fear in the streets, the silence that follows. That single moment can change a child forever. For Ice Cube, that moment didn't just change his childhood, it shaped his entire worldview. His music, his anger, his voice, and eventually, his fall from grace. Today, we're not talking about just a rapper. We're talking about how trauma creates legends, and how it can also destroy them. This is the story of Ice Cube, the murder that changed everything. Ice Cube was born as O'Shea Jackson on June 15, 1969, in South Central.
And he didn't make the cut. And it really frustrated him a lot. And, you know, he just went off the deep end.
Los Angeles. He grew up in a working-class black family during a time when the streets were getting more dangerous every year. Crack cocaine was flooding neighborhoods. Gang violence was becoming normal. Police sirens were background noise. But even in that chaos, young O'Shea was still a kid, going to school, writing rhymes, dreaming quietly.
So, you know, I think this is like starting my distrust for people who want to be, you know, he was just really jacked up off all the power that the police had over people and what, you know, things that they could do. And
innocence would not last long. In 1981, when O'Shea was only 12 years old, his half-sister Beverly Jean Brown was killed by gun violence. Beverly was 22 years old. She lived just a few blocks away from the family home. She was married to Carl Clifford Brown, a 27-year-old man who dreamed of becoming an LAPD officer but never made the cut. What happened to Beverly wasn't just another headline in the newspaper. It was personal. It was close. It was brutal. And it sent a clear message to a young boy watching the world: life is not fair, and it can be taken from you at any moment. That loss hit Ice Cube deeply. People who knew him later said he became quieter, more observant, and more serious after that. He started seeing the streets not as a playground, but as a battlefield. Violence was no longer something he heard about. It was something that lived inside his family history. This trauma didn't fade. It hardened him. As Ice Cube grew into his teenage years, he turned to writing. Words became his weapon. Rhymes became his therapy. He wasn't just rapping for fun, he was documenting pain, anger, fear, and survival. His lyrics came from real places, real emotions, and real loss. That raw honesty would later become his biggest strength. By the mid-1980s, Ice Cube connected with other young artists who felt the same rage and frustration. Together with Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, MC Ren, and DJ Yella, he became part of a group that would change music forever, and WA at a time. When mainstream America didn't want to hear about police brutality, street violence, or systemic racism, Ice Cube was screaming it into a microphone, and WA's music was aggressive, unapologetic, and dangerous. Songs like Straight Outta Compton weren't just tracks, they were statements. Ice Cube's pen was sharp. His verses were detailed and fearless. He spoke for people who felt ignored and hunted. For many fans, Ice Cube wasn't glorifying violence, he was exposing it. But success came with pressure. Money, fame, and power started changing relationships within the group. Ice Cube believed he wasn't being paid fairly. Tensions exploded. By 1989, Ice Cube left NWA, a move that shocked the hip-hop world. Many thought his career was over. They were wrong. Ice Cube went solo and became even more dangerous. His first albums were filled with rage, politics, and truth. He criticized the system, the police, the government, and even his own community. Some praised him as a revolutionary voice. Others accused him of spreading hate. But no one ignored him. During the early 1990s, Ice Cube was at his peak. He wasn't just a rapper anymore, he was a cultural figure. He crossed over into acting, starring in films like Boys and the Hood, which again reflected the violent reality of South Central Los Angeles. The same streets that shaped his childhood were now the backdrop of his art. Yet beneath
it was full of a lot of families, you know, not too many single mothers. It was families up and down the block. Everybody had a lot of kids. So it was a bunch of boys on my block.
the success, the anger never left. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you become rich. Ice Cube carried that hardened worldview with him into adulthood. He saw the world in terms of power, survival, and control. Trust was limited. Enemies were everywhere. As years passed, Ice Cube's image slowly began to change. The man once seen as the voice of the streets started making choices that confused fans. Some of his political statements felt contradictory. Some of his alliances felt questionable. People began asking, what happened to Ice Cube? Controversies started stacking up. His comments on politics divided his audience. His social media posts raised eyebrows. Some accused him of abandoning the community he once represented. Others said he was simply evolving. But one thing was clear, the public image of Ice Cube was no longer unified. For many fans, this felt like a fall from grace. The same man who once stood against oppression now appeared to align with powerful interests. Whether that perception was fair or not, it damaged his legacy. The respect he once commanded was now mixed with disappointment. But to understand Ice Cube fully, you have to go back to that 12-year-old boy in 1981. Trauma shapes people in unpredictable ways. Some become healers. Some become fighters. Ice Cube became a warrior with words, but warriors don't always know how to put their weapons down. Gun violence took his sister. That loss taught him the world was cruel. Fame taught him the world was fake. Somewhere between those lessons, Ice Cube built walls so thick that even his own fans struggled to reach him. This is what makes Ice Cube's story tragic, complex, and human. He is not a villain. He is not a saint. He is a product of pain, survival, and ambition. His rise was fueled by truth. His fall was shaped by choices. In the end, Ice Cube's legacy remains complicated. His music changed hip-hop forever. His voice gave power to the powerless. But his journey also reminds us that unresolved trauma doesn't disappear, it follows you. From the streets of South Central to Hollywood boardrooms, that 12-year-old boy never truly left. And maybe that's the real story here. Not just the murder, not just the fame, but how one moment of violence can echo through an entire lifetime, shaping a legend and slowly breaking it. What if I told you that one single night can steal your childhood forever? Not slowly, not over years, but instant.
You know, I did a speech when I graduated from the 6th grade. You know, so I did like a graduation speech for our 6th grade class. So I was, you know, I was always able to take my thoughts and put them on, you know, express myself on paper and with my mouth.
One moment you are just a kid, playing outside, laughing, throwing water balloons, dreaming about nothing serious. And the next moment, you realize something terrifying. Your life, your family, your safety, all of it can be taken away in seconds. This is not a movie scene. This is not a song lyric. This is the moment that changed Ice Cube forever. Before the fame, before the anger, before the music that shook America. This is the story of how violence knocked on his door and never really left. Ice Cube was still a child when the world showed him its darkest side. Until then, life was simple. The streets were familiar. The neighbors were faces you recognized. The block felt like home. He played basketball just a few blocks away from where he lived. Kids ran around freely. Water balloon fights turned hot afternoons into memories that felt safe and innocent. Back then, danger felt far away, like something that happened on TV, not in real life. But that illusion did not last long. The day Beverly was killed, something inside Ice Cube broke quietly. It did not explode right away. It cracked, slowly, deeply. This was not some random crime in a city he had never seen. Beverly lived close. Too close. Just blocks away. She was family, blood, someone connected to his own life, his own streets, his own memories. That made the violence impossible to escape. This was not a headline. This was not an evening news story. This was personal. Ice Cube later said something simple, but heavy enough to carry a lifetime of pain. Your life can be taken away by somebody you know. Those words did not come from theory. They came from experience, from fear. From a child who learned too early that life has no guarantees. The man who committed this act was not a stranger either. That made it worse. Much worse. His name was Carl Clifford Brown. Ice Cube knew him. His family knew him. This was not violence from the outside, it came from within the community. And that realization changes you. Because when danger wears a familiar face, trust becomes fragile. Carl Clifford Brown had dreams once.
Yeah, I was 15, maybe 14 when I met Dre.
Yeah.
15 when I really started to hang with him, but I met him because his cousin lives right down the street from me. A guy who has produced some of my music before. His name is Sir Jinx. And we started out together. And his cousin is Dr. Dre, you know.
Big dreams. He wanted to be a police officer. He wanted the badge, the authority, the power that came with it. To him, the uniform represented respect and control. But the LAPD rejected him. And when that rejection happened, something inside him snapped. Ice Cube did not see the moment it broke, but he lived with the consequences. That rejection turned into rage. Rage turned into violence. And violence stole a life. Beverly's life. For young O'Shea, this was the moment innocence ended. Childhood does not always disappear with fireworks or dramatic moments. Sometimes it fades in silence. Sometimes it dies in shock. After that, the streets felt different. The air felt heavier. Every sound felt sharper. Every argument felt dangerous. The idea that adults could lose control completely became real. This event forced Ice Cube to grow up faster than he should have. He began to understand that gun culture was not just about protection or power, it was about fear. That domestic abuse was not a private issue, it destroyed families. That violence did not stay contained, it spread, touching everyone nearby. He saw how quickly a dream could turn into a nightmare. Carl wanted to enforce the law. Instead, he became the reason people feared it. And that contradiction left a mark on Ice Cube's mind. Authority was no longer something to trust blindly. Power was no longer something to admire without question. As years passed, that pain did not disappear. It transformed. It turned into awareness, into anger, into truth. Ice Cube did not forget that night, he carried it with him. It lived in his lyrics, in his tone, in the way he spoke about the streets. His music was not just entertainment, it was testimony. When Ice Cube later rapped about violence, police, and broken systems, it was not imagination. It was memory. When he spoke about how quickly life can be taken, he was not exaggerating. He had already seen it happen to someone he loved. That childhood shock became fuel. Not the kind that burns fast, but the kind that burns forever. It shaped how he saw the world, how he questioned authority, how he refused to sugarcoat reality. He did not rap to sound cool. He rapped to survive emotionally. The streets that once felt like playgrounds became classrooms. Lessons were harsh, mistakes were costly, and silence was dangerous. Ice Cube learned early that speaking your truth was sometimes the only defense you had. Even today, when people hear Ice Cube's raw honesty, they feel it. Because pain has a sound, trauma has a voice, and his voice came from a place most people never see the moment a child realizes that safety is an illusion. Beverly's death was not just a loss, it was a warning that violence does not ask for permission, that it does not care about age, or dreams, or future plans.
That was the first time I thought about, okay, you know, this is a statement that nobody's really ever made. Like, this is a record that nobody has ever made. So with that, then I started to realize, okay, you know, we got something here that could be our version of Fight the Power, you know, in a lot of ways.
It just takes. And for Ice Cube, that truth became part of his DNA. This is why his story matters. Not because of fame, not because of money, but because behind the artist was a child who lost something priceless. The belief that tomorrow was guaranteed. And once that belief is gone, you never get it back. People keep saying Ice Cube is dead. Every few months, a new headline spreads online. A blurry picture, a fake post, a shocking title. Rip Ice Cube, millions click, millions react. But here's the truth they don't expect. Ice Cube is alive. He is breathing. He is creating. He is performing. He is fighting. The real tragedy of Ice Cube is not his death. The real tragedy happened long before fame, before music, before Hollywood. It happened when he was just 12 years old. That is the moment that changed everything. That is the moment that made Ice Cube who he is today. Before the world knew his name, before he became a voice for millions. He was just a kid growing up in South Central Los Angeles. A regular boy with dreams, jokes, and a family he loved. And then one night, everything shattered. His sister, Beverly Jean Brown, was murdered. Gun violence took her life. No fame, no cameras. No headlines. Just pain, just shock. Just a 12-year-old boy trying to understand how the world could be so cruel. That wound never healed. It stayed with him, quiet, heavy, burning. Most people never recover from something like that. Many fall into the same violence that took their loved ones. Some disappear. Some become statistics. Ice Cube didn't. He stood at the edge of that darkness and made a choice. He took his grief and turned it into fuel. He took his anger and turned it into words. He took his pain and turned it into purpose. Every verse Ice Cube ever wrote carries that pain. You might not hear his sister's name in his songs, but you feel her presence. When he talks about gun violence, it comes from a real place. When he speaks about broken systems, police abuse, and injustice, he is not pretending. He is remembering. He is reliving the night his childhood ended. He is speaking for a boy who never got answers. Music became his weapon, not guns. Not revenge, words, truth, raw honesty. He didn't sugarcoat reality. He didn't ask for permission. He told stories America didn't want to hear. He gave a voice to communities that were ignored, feared, or blamed. That anger people hear in his music is not hatred. It is grief that learned how to speak. Ice Cube rose from South Central and changed hip-hop forever. With NWA, he helped create a sound that forced the world to listen. A sound that exposed hypocrisy. A sound that made people uncomfortable. And that was the point. He wasn't trying to entertain. He was trying to wake people up. As his career grew, so did his influence. He didn't stop at music. He moved into film. He told stories on screen that reflected real life. Stories about struggle, survival, and family. He showed that a man from the streets could also be a storyteller, a businessman, a leader. He built an empire without forgetting where he came from. Hollywood eventually honored him. Handprints and footprints at the TCL Chinese Theater. A symbol of success. A symbol of respect. But even standing there, surrounded by applause, the pain never left. Success did not erase loss. Fame did not replace family. Beverly was still gone. Ice Cube outlived the beefs. He outlived the controversies. He outlived the rumors and the fake death stories. But he never outlived the memory of his sister. And maybe that's why he never stopped fighting. Never stopped speaking. Never stopped demanding accountability. Many people think the tragic fate of Ice Cube is something that might happen in the future. They are wrong. The tragedy already happened. And the miracle is what he did after. He survived. He refused to become another young black man swallowed by violence. He refused to let the system break him the way it broke so many others. Instead of collapsing, he created. Instead of disappearing, he stood up. Instead of staying silent, he told the truth. Over and over again. Even when it cost him. Even when it made people angry. Ice Cube raised a family. He became a father. A husband, a mentor. He broke cycles that many never escape. And through it all, his sister remained with him. Not as a ghost, but as a reason. A reason to speak. A reason to fight. A reason to keep going. His story is not about death. It is about survival. It is about a boy who watched his world fall apart and spent the next for decades, turning that broken glass into a mirror for America. A mirror that forces us to look at violence, injustice, and loss. A mirror that asks uncomfortable questions. A mirror that still matters. So the next time you see a headline saying Ice Cube is dead, remember this. The only thing that ever died was his childhood. And from those ashes, one of the most powerful voices in history was born. Ice Cube is alive. And his truth still hits just as hard. Even today, when Ice Cube walks on stage and thousands of people cheer his name, there is a silence inside him that never fully goes away. Fame is loud, but grief is quiet. It sits with you, it waits. And sometimes, it speaks louder than applause. Ice Cube learned early that pain does not disappear just because life moves forward. You either let it destroy you, or you learn how to carry it. That loss shaped how he sees the world. It shaped how he listens. It shaped how he speaks. When Ice Cube talks about young lives being lost to gun violence, he is not speaking from statistics or headlines. He is speaking from memory. From a moment frozen in time. A phone call. A knock on the door. A family forever changed. Many artists use pain as inspiration for one album, one song, one era. Ice Cube used it for a lifetime. Not to glorify violence, but to expose it. Not to profit from trauma, but to prevent it from happening again. His anger was never random. It was focused. It was directed. It was controlled. As the years passed, Ice Cube evolved, but he never softened the truth. He understood that systems do not change unless they are challenged. And he was never afraid to challenge power. That courage came from knowing the worst had already happened to him. When you lose someone you love at 12 years old, fear loses its grip on you. Hollywood tried to put him in boxes: rapper, actor, comedian, producer. Ice Cube refused to be limited. He built his own lanes. He created opportunities not just for himself, but for others who looked like him, sounded like him, came from places like him. That, too, was part of the mission. Survival alone was not enough. Impact mattered. Behind the scenes, Ice Cube is known as disciplined, focused, and deeply intentional. Nothing is accidental. Every move has meaning. That mindset was born from loss. When life teaches you how fragile everything is, you stop wasting time. You stop chasing approval. You start building something that lasts. Even when critics attacked him, when media tried to twist his words, when controversies followed him, he stayed standing. Not because he was perfect, but because he was rooted. Rooted in truth. Rooted in experience. Rooted in a promise he made to himself as a kid who lost his sister, that her death would not be meaningless. Ice Cube never chased sympathy. He never told his story to be pitied. He told it to be understood. There is a difference. His message has always been clear. This is what violence does. This is what broken systems create. And this is what happens when communities are ignored for too long. As he grew older, his voice gained a different weight. Less rage, more wisdom. Less shouting, more reflection. But the fire never went out. It just burned smarter. He began speaking not only as an artist, but as a father who wanted a safer world for his children. A world where fewer 12-year-old boys would have to grow up overnight. Ice Cube's legacy is not just albums or movies or awards. His legacy is resilience. It is proof that tragedy does not get the final word unless you let it. He took something meant to break him and used it to build a life, a career, and a platform that continues to matter. Some people spend their lives running from pain. Ice Cube walked straight into it and turned it into a voice. A voice that still echoes. A voice that still challenges. A voice that still refuses to lie. So when people ask about the tragic fate of Ice Cube, the answer is simple. The tragedy was real. The loss was real. But the fate was not death. The fate was purpose. The fate was survival. The fate was transformation. Ice Cube is not a rumor. He is not a headline. He is a living reminder that even the deepest wounds can produce the strongest truth. And as long as he keeps speaking, creating, and standing his ground, that truth will never